And the Naira staged a dramatic rally against the US dollar last week across multiple markets for the first time since August 2023. The exchange rate dipped below the $900 to $1 mark on the peer-to-peer platform. That's the crypto market, including Binance. For the parallel market, listed exchange rates, we saw it ranging from about 1,000 Naira to 1,100 Naira to the dollar. Transactions were seen on the official front. The Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market witnessed the Naira closing about encouraging 776 Naira 14 kobo, marking the strongest finish since October 13th of the current year. Let's get a sense of what drove that rally and navigate the investment landscape in Nigeria. Join us for this conversation is Mr. Kalu Aja, financial analyst. Good morning. Great to have you.
Hey, how's it going?
So did you expect that Naira would strengthen, like this last week? And it looks like currency speculators who've been betting against the Naira must be ouching, right now, in the words of the Saudi oil minister. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, but like it's just one word, supply. We've always said if there's supply in the market, right, there will be a movement in the exchange rates. And last week we saw a huge supply. We saw one trade about $1 billion or so on the P2P side. Not to get too technical, but when we trade in pairs. And we did see someone come to the market and say, I want to sell dollars and buy Naira. So of course, Naira had to strengthen and dollar had to go down. Who that person was, we're not sure, right? But supply came to the market and Naira had to respond. Add to that the news that the CBN was basically paying off all the FX backlog. Add to that the fact that we just came out of PDID. We dodged that bullet in the lawsuit. So there's a lot of news coming out. And it looks to me, if you ask me, it looks like the CBN went in there to break people's legs. This is just me saying, right? To break the speculators' planning and say, hey, we can touch you in the P2P market. So we don't really want you guys to build up this large short position that you have. Right? We can come in there and maybe clean out your books. And they just put a warning in there. It's $1 billion, it's material, it looks institutional from the government side, but they achieved this aim. So that's where we are right now.
Would you say it's time to go long on the Naira? Is this rise sustainable?
Sadly, I don't think so, because the strength of the Naira is crude oil sales. Just it, crude oils, not even cocoa, not even oil, non-agricultural, right? It's purely crude oil sales. If you look at the exports from Nigeria, we've gone from 2.3 million barrels per day to about 1.3, 1.5 right now. So unless we see substantial and consistent exports of crude oil from Nigeria at these high prices, the Naira would not stay stable for long. They are simply because the CBN will have no forex reserve to defend the Naira. It's a floating market, but the CBN can still intervene. If the speculators know that the CBN does not have dollars, then the CBN or the Naira cannot then stay strong forever. So but what will happen is that if they keep on doing this commando tax of going to the market and coming out, it stops people from building huge short positions. But you can't do that as a strategy for long term, right? You've got to go back to exporting and getting dollars into Nigeria. That's the only way you can ensure the Naira stays strong long term. The fundamentals, laddie, not the speculative, rather.
Right, we definitely need more inflows and less outflows of dollars at this time. But we see nowadays most media houses report the crypto P2P market, that's the peer-to-peer market, seems to have a lot of liquidity. But what would you say are the advantages and disadvantages of this P2P market?
I think the main advantage is price discovery. So you go there and you get the real market price. That's the real quote-unquote willing buyer, willing seller, market-driven price. It's not the CBN price. That is the price where if I want to exchange my dollars to someone in Nigeria, I get a quote that is real market-based. So that gives you the on-the-spot market for dollar to, say, foreign currency. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is that, of course, it's outside the CBN's control. They cannot determine the price on that market. Hence, they can't control or move monetary policy in that market. So that's the two sides of looking at it. I think the CBN should sort of if you want to kill that market, you've got to get supply. If you don't have supply, really nothing you can do, right? I'm of the view that maybe we should invite those players in that market and say, come to Nigeria, formalize your relationship with Nigeria, regulate them, let them bring supply in, possibly tax them. No, you can't control them, but at least you can oversee what you're doing, do your KYC, do your money laundering procedures, and bring them closer to the government. But if you keep them at arm's length, of course, you can't control them, and of course, things can move out of your monetary plans in effect.
And for the most of 2022, into 2023 was all about monetary policy tightening, and most investors were tilting to, risk-off sentiment back here, high inflation, currency devaluation. But we're seeing the stock markets, the local bourse, the NGX, hit a new high of 70,000 points. Does it mean it's better to just go with risk on sentiment, regardless of economic headwinds, from what we've seen, in 2022 into 2023?
I think we really have no choice in terms of if we go risk on, because inflation is so high that if you simply hold Naira or you don't take a risk, you're already below the water. You're not going to make a real return. But look at the fixed income rate. The risk-free rate in Nigeria is below inflation, which means if I have funds to invest, I must take risk if I want to at least close the gap. That's what you're seeing in the stock market. The stock market now is investors are trying to use the stock market to close out their gaps in real return. Also, where else are you going to put your money, right? If you don't do fixed income and you don't do the dollar, that's the only market you have right now. That market looks a bit cheap. I mean, the Nigerian stock market, the PE ratio on the Nigerian stock exchange is lower than, say, the US or Europe, even though the currency might be different, right? So folks are saying, maybe this is a bargain. Maybe I get in now and I buy those stocks now and I ride the wave. I mean, if you bought a Transcorp, which was driven by momentum, you have made a lot of money. Well, look at what UBA delivered in their results in third quarter. So a lot of gems in that market that you can buy on the cheap now and simply hold and ride the wave until inflation comes down. Then fixed income becomes a real, should we say, quote unquote, safe, real return. But for now, you have no choice. If you want to have a real return, you've got to take risk. It might not be in the stock market, but you've got to take risk, more or less, yeah.
And last week, we got a couple of earnings, Q3 earnings for, companies listed on the local bourse, and we're still expecting more this week. But from the results you've seen so far, what is it telling us about the Nigerian economy, even though we're seeing the NGX rallying to new highs?
It just tells that banks seem to make a lot of money in Nigeria, irrespective of the economic situation. The banking results have been wonderful. I would say super fantastic results. Look at what UBA have done. Like I said, the GTB, the Zenith banks, they've all done very, very good. Even if the economy is not doing well, the banks tend to do well. That's a pointer to maybe policy, right? How can we go to how can we translate what the banks are doing across the sector? The banks seem to have the best people and seem to take advantage of government policy the best. They seem to be able to react in advance of government policy. So maybe that's a lesson to other folks. You've got to hedge your exposure. If you sell wheat, you are also a trader. You can't look at yourself as just I'm a guy that just sells cereal. I'm a guy that just sells beer. Your treasury department in that company have got to be on top of the game. Otherwise, you lose money and you're going to negative. That's basically what we're seeing right now.
And looking at this time, consumers, investors in Nigeria are squeezed, with sky-high inflation, and there's people are trying to survive, at this time. How do you, manage or juggle investing, when the economy is so tight? How do you still go about your investments and also consumption needs, at this time? What would you say is the best advice for that, Nigerian that's trying to invest to, multiply and get more money in future, but at the same time trying to eat?
I got you. I mean, it goes back to the very simple basics. Where is your budget? Where is your emergency fund? Those basics should have been done before you got in here. You don't build the Iroko tree now. You want to build it, say, 10 years ago, then live in the shade. So you have to have a budget. It sounds very, very cliche and very, very simplistic. But if you don't know where your money is going, you'll be surprised. You might not know how to get more money. So you've got to determine where it's coming in and where it's going out of, then you have to look for other sources of income. Again, if you have assets that you're not using, you have a house, you have a car, try to monetize it. And again, be very careful of inflation. How you avoid inflation in Nigeria is very, very easy. Don't hold the Naira, right? So if you're not going to spend the Naira in the next 3 to 6 months, you might want to diversify away from holding cash. I'm not saying you should go buy foreign currency, but holding cash exposes you to inflation. So if you hold an asset, right, you will not be exposed to inflation. I.e., if you buy a bag of rice, it's better than holding Naira cash. So get a bit understanding of money, and have a budget, and try to ride out the storm. It will pass, but we are in the big deep hole that we need a lot of spending to get out of.
And definitely a big storm for 2023. What are we expecting for 2024? How do you think investors should, hedge for that? If take for instance, there's another storm in 2024.
I'll tell you this way. Go back to the oil sales. Go back to the role of bandits in Nigeria. If oil starts to go out of Nigeria, it will be a good 2024. If the bandits get removed and food prices go down, that lowers inflation. It's also going to be a very, very good year. These are the two things you have to watch: oil sales and food prices. These two things are the key economic drivers in Nigeria today. If you don't fix those two, whatever you do will not have changed anything. Inflation is simply too high. It's got to come down. And what drives inflation is food. So if you don't have cheap food in Nigeria, no economic plan would work. If you don't have oil going out of Nigeria legally to bring dollars back into the country, we don't have funds to grow the economy. Right now, we're doing forward sales. So we're eating tomorrow's lunch today. That hole that we've created has got to be filled up. If 2024 happens and we have no revenues to fill that hole, then we're in big trouble. So I'm a bit confident, but I'm again wary. I look at the supplementary budget that just passed. That tells me the intent of the government. If I see your budget, I can see your intent. You have a budget that says 0 funds spent on health, just 5 billion on education, and then 5 billion on a yacht. Doesn't sound too nice, Aladi. So we've got to work faster and be more deliberate in what we want to do. I think we're moving too slow and we're not communicating what we want to do, i.e. the government. They've got to move fast, communicate, and take people along with them. That's what I'll say on that.
Right, I guess we all like that yacht lifestyle, but definitely now's not the time for that. Thank you so much, Mr. Kalu, financial analyst. Thank you for sharing your money with us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
You too.